and now he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's joining us live from New York. He was doing stuff with the company Stretch Zone. I'll get to that in a second. So it's interesting. We have footage of Dan Fouts, former Oregon Duck Charger, knocking on the door. And so, I mean, you got a sense it could happen. So, like, just take me to that moment. When you saw Dan, what did you think?
It was a shock, but really it was like the setup before that. So it was my birthday a few days prior to that. And I share a birthday with my son, Balin, who was the 1-year-old that I held up at Super Bowl, who's now 17 and driving, by the way. So the weekend was all about him. So Monday rolls around, and my daughter, who's 11 years old, who is like my absolute sweetheart, it's like, Dad, I want to take you out to eat at 5 o'clock. And so I'm like, my heart's melting. I'm like, oh, absolutely, sweetie. So be ready by 5. So I'm ready. My wife's ready. My daughter's ready. And the boys are messing around upstairs. I'm like, boys, let's go. Rylan said 5 o'clock. We're out the door. They're still messing around. Like, I'm starting to get frustrated. I'm literally about to leave the boys. Like, they're being disrespectful. We're leaving, like, teach them a lesson. And then there's a knock at the door, and I'm like, who's knocking at the door? We're trying to get out of the house, you know? And so then there's Dan Fouts and 10 cameras, you know? And it's like, oh boy, you got me.
Oh, that is a great story. You were just about to teach your sons a life lesson, and you get a Lifetime Achievement Award. That's how it should work.
That's right. In the meantime, my wife had told them, like, hey, you guys stall until they knock on the door. We can't leave, you know? So she had this whole thing orchestrated the whole time.
Oh, that's great. So, you know, it's funny. People were saying Sam Darnold. They said, oh, Sam, you know, Colin, you love Darnold. He didn't do anything. And I joked. I said, yeah, he didn't throw a pick. He didn't fumble. He didn't have multiple sacks. And I went back and looked this up. Here are Super Bowl winning quarterbacks with no playoff turnovers: Drew Brees, Troy Aikman, Steve Young, and Sam Darnold. And what do you have in common? You're great. Your coaches are great, and your rosters were really good. I'm watching your Saints highlights during the break. I'm like, man, you guys had good players. Take me to that playoff run by you. Did you understand, Drew? This is the best roster I may have had. There are certain throws maybe I won't make this playoff run.
You know, obviously we were ultra confident, you know, with that team and going into the 2009 playoffs. If you recall, we started off 13-0. You know,
Yep.
We were rolling. Then we lost a tough one to Dallas. Then we lost a tough one to Tampa, where we missed a field goal in overtime. Ironically, in the exact same spot where we made the field goal in the NFC Championship to advance to the Super Bowl. But I think when we looked at kind of our road through the playoffs, look, it was a gauntlet. You know, Kurt Warner was coming to town, Hall of Fame quarterback, right? They were airing it out. Then NFC Championship, it was Brett Favre and that Vikings team, which was as good a Vikings team as I've ever seen. And then obviously we were going to play, you know, Peyton Manning, and arguably a team that could have been undefeated that year. They kind of just threw the last 2 games so they could rest their starters. So like, we kind of knew what was ahead of us, and yet we knew that if we played our game and executed the way that we knew that we could win. And I would always define our team as a somewhat aggressive team, you know, knowing Sean Payton, knowing kind of the way he likes to call a game. I think it also equipped and empowered me as the quarterback, though, in a lot of cases where I knew he was going to be aggressive. I knew he was going to dial it up, but I also knew that he had trust and confidence in me to make great decisions, to check the ball down if it wasn't there, to not take any unnecessary chances because, hey, we'll come back and call it again. And so a lot of that confidence and a lot of, you know, playing that way and at that level was the result of the confidence that I knew he had in me.
Do you have a little soft spot for Darnold based on your first couple years weren't perfect and Darnold's first several weren't? When you look at Sam, do you find yourself like rooting for him because that journey, you have some similarities?
1,000%. 1,000%. And honestly, I think it embodies all the lessons that we hope to teach our kids through sports and through team athletics. And that is that you will face adversity. You will face failure and disappointment. And it's how you react to it that matters. And while it didn't work at the first couple teams that he went to, he continued to work. He continued to recognize where he needed to get better and learn. And I look at the journey that he traveled, and while it wasn't maybe the road that he would have envisioned when he first got in the league, it was meant to be, and it's what has brought out the best in him and allowed him to play the way that he has, lead the way that he has, and also inspire others the way that he has.
When you think of Drew, when I think Drew Brees, if somebody said, give me a sentence for every quarterback that played, and people said Drew Brees, and I'd be like, that's the most accurate quarterback I've ever seen play. And I've always had this feeling, and I'm clearly wrong, but I always had this feeling I could improve a lot about a quarterback. I can't make you bigger, but if you're not accurate, you're never going to be super accurate. Like it did. Well, and by the way, I think accuracy is very important. So you, first couple years in the league, were around 60%, and then you end as the most accurate quarterback any of us have ever seen. And it was that, and I look at Caleb Williams, people bang on him, and I'm like, well, he's got a lot of horsepower. If he can get to 63%, yeah, I'm kind of good with it. So tell me, you went from like average 60%. Now, that was a different time in the NFL where that was better than what 60% is today. That was like 65%. But then you became the most accurate guy. Obviously, a lot of it is you and the time and the devotion. But was it also coaching? Wait, tell me how you got to the greatest, most accurate quarterback off pretty accurate. Like, what was it?
So first off, to me, accuracy is trust and anticipation. So it's the trust in and the chemistry and the timing that you develop with the guys that you're throwing to, your ability to anticipate what's happening given your preparation, your knowledge of your own system. I think it's also understanding what wins and loses in the NFL and the premium that you put on being in a third and short situation than a third and long situation. Well, what's the difference between that? Well, maybe it was the fact that I took the check down as opposed to taking the risk on that play. Like, just because I know I can make that throw, you have to have this internal mechanism that kind of tells you, hey, that's a 1 in 10 completion versus I take this check down and that gets me to 3rd and 4. Well, the chances and probabilities of me converting that are much, much higher than being a 3rd and 10. And so I'll give you, like with Caleb Williams, here's a guy who we watched in college make miraculous plays, like run around and do all kinds of stuff. And I think you get wired a certain way early in your career that, hey, this is how I play the game. And then you get into the NFL game and you begin to understand, no, it's more about playing within the system, the timing and rhythm with your feet, taking the completions that you need to take. Occasionally you're going to have to, do the kind of the off script stuff. Yeah. But for the most part, the game is won and lost by just staying ahead of the chains, getting the ball in your playmakers' hands, making good decisions, and being on time and executing the offense. So I think that certainly can come. Yes, there's something to just the mechanics, right? And the things that you'll continue, like towards the end of my career, I was so tuned with my body and like when I would miss a throw, why that was, it was too large a stride, or my elbow dropped, or I didn't have my front foot out in front of the target. Like I could fix problems immediately, right? Just given the fact that I was so in tune with my body and I knew what would lead to accuracy. So all these things happen with time. Hey, first off, before I answer that, can we reminisce on the time when literally I was talking to you after we won the Super Bowl? And do you remember that I had to jump off the call because Obama was calling on the other line? Do you remember that? We were in the middle of an interview and I said, Colin, I am so sorry. I never thought I would say this, but can I call you back because Obama is calling on the other line to say congratulations? That was probably the first and only time that would ever happen.
Yes, I remember it well. So we got a minute left. Tell me about stretch zone.
Yeah, forgive the Lincoln Tunnel there. Yeah. So stretch zone is the largest and fastest growing practitioner-led stretching brand in the country. It was something that I utilized towards the end of my career, really to gain every advantage that I possibly could with my recovery, with my flexibility, with my mobility. It made such a difference for me that when I got done playing, I actually sought out the owners and the founders of the company to learn more about it. And before I knew it, I was on the business side, on the franchisor side as an investor and ambassador and sitting on the board, helping to grow and scale the business. And I always knew that just from my own personal experience and anecdotally, that the practitioner lives. But now we have the research and everything that we just announced to back it up. It shows up to 9 people in our study showed increased energy, increased productivity, a higher range of motion, less pain, better sleep, and just an overall better quality of life. So the stretch zone method applies to anybody, whether you're age 13 or 113, whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether you're, a weekend warrior, high performance athlete, or just somebody who's getting a little bit older, who's lost the ability to move, just trying to shave some strokes off your golf game. There's something there for everybody.